Black Belt Selling with Stephanie and Anna Scheller. I'm Anna.
And I'm Stephanie.
We are a mother-daughter team who are passionate about helping you grow your sales, especially when times are tough like what we're going through right now. You can learn more about us by going to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. There you can interact with us, and please throw in questions. Let us interact with you. Let's work together to make the best of this situation so that we can all prosper in spite of things that we can't control. So go to Black Belt Selling, facebook.com/Black Belt Selling /groups/Black Belt Selling. Boy, I'm really messing it up, but I don't have the virus. I'm good. So Stephanie, our guest today has been a recurring guest. And I always love it when Nigel Green joins us. And he's been a speaker at the Grow Retreat twice and always brought tremendous, tremendous value. And I love how he starts his bio. Hope isn't a sales strategy.
It's not. Come on. All right, keep going.
So Nigel helps investors, executives, and sales leaders of quickly growing companies eliminate chance and create predictable sales growth. From 2012 to 2015, he served as vice president of sales for the Foundation Recovery Network, which I find very fascinating because it's a health company. And he grew that business from $94 million. I know some of us can't even think about that, but get this, he grew it to $350 million before the business was sold. He has more than 15 years of experience leading sales teams and sales leaders. If you're wanting to eliminate chance from your sales strategy, you need to call Nigel Green. And the book that he just put out is perfect for that kind of strategy. Talk a little bit about that, Stephanie.
Well, the book that he just dropped is Revenue Harvest, and it's all about, to me, what I took away from reading the book is that it's all about creating a tangible connection for sales leaders. And I really got a lot out of it as a salesperson too. I know he says he wrote it for sales leaders, but I really got a lot out of it in terms of someone who manages, her own sales process and her own sales for the company. I got a lot of ideas out of that. And it takes the kind of intangible ideas of sales and ties them to something that we have a lot of studies and tangible, like you can see the seed, you can see the farmers, and it starts to make a lot of sense as he's relating it to these sales concepts. And for me, it made it more memorable because I'll often find, a lot of times sales, you're having to revisit ideas regularly because they kind of slip out of your head. Whereas the way Nigel wrote this book and the way he connected it to something tangible, it made it a lot easier to have a picture in my head that I draw back to. And it's helped it really stick in my head. I read the book, I guess almost a month ago now, and it's really helped it stick a lot more in my head. And I really appreciate that about this book and about Nigel and his teaching style.
Yeah, he is pretty cool. I will admit that Nigel is very, very cool. Now, some of the things that our listeners are maybe going to want to really hone in on is that, one, we did make a lot of application to the current situation with the pandemic, the coronavirus. I think there's some extremely key elements for people to pay attention to, like how many of us have thought about firing ourselves and how to rehire ourselves. That was a really good point he brought up. And then, so many times we grow anxious and depressed because there's so much we see that we can't control. Right. But really, Nigel talked about what are the things we can control and how can we focus on those things. If we're disappointed because our harvest isn't coming in like we planned, what are the things we do have control over? Right. And then finally, the thing is, we look at the things that maybe motivate people to want to change and look at a new vendor. But he really talked about something that I thought was extremely important and very timely, and that is making sense of the future. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Um,
No.
so I really think we should just let Nigel talk about that. He really he hit on these very well. I think it would be, why don't we dive into the interview?
All right. So without further ado, here is the interview with Nigel Green about his book, Revenue Harvest. Hey, Nigel, welcome back to Black Belt Selling. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. And we just enjoy being with you.
Well, I've missed you guys. It's been over a year since we were last together at the Grow Retreat in San Antonio. And I have to compliment both of you. I've been watching it on social media, and it has become quite the buzz. So congrats.
Thank you. It really has. We're very proud of how far this retreat has come, and where like people get so excited about it. I'm like, this is awesome. So
You've outgrown me. You've got real speakers there now.
Whoa. I don't, Nigel, you are one of the favorite speakers every year. So
we had Nigel back twice, people. We had Nigel back twice. We don't bring many speakers back twice. We'll allow up to one speaker to come back the next year. We just don't do it. And we brought Nigel back twice. So.
If you haven't gone to this event, I'm telling you, you need to go. A lot of people think that I'm an expert on selling, but I learned a lot from others that are quite capable themselves. So Stephanie and Anna did a great job of just making it a really just action-packed group of folks, and you need to be there.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. And then the first year, we had Nigel, and we had to zip you out because of an upcoming major life event.
That's right. We had to have you fly in and out.
How's she doing?
People think coronavirus is scary. Try welcoming a newborn into your life when you're unprepared. That's pretty scary. So everybody's good, though.
Good.
Congratulations.
Well, Nigel, we have you back on the show because you've launched a new book.
That's right. Yeah.
So tell us, Revenue Harvest, right? I love how you brought in, right, the moving to the farm and the farming background and sales, and just kind of married these two pieces of you and really used the sale. One of the things I really loved about this is like sales can be so difficult for people to wrap their heads around because it's all of these kind of ideas. It's floating up here, in the ether. And taking it into this harvest concept made it very like, like you could see it a lot easier. I really appreciated that about Revenue Harvest.
Well, thank you. So one thing that's true about our friends in the farming community is it's really clear. Either you produced a crop or you didn't. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of sales leaders, you're right, they have ideas, they have dreams, they don't really have plans. So we get to the end of the selling year and they don't know how to measure whether or not it was a good year or not a good year, or what worked or what didn't work. And in fact, it's times like these when we're in the midst of pandemics and crises that a lot of sales leaders and business owners are finding their plans and their ability to plan being really challenged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's interesting is something that I've been realizing. You're familiar with Jeb Blunt, I'm sure, or not?
Yeah, I know Jeb.
Oh, good. Well, got that one. I did that one right. Jeb has what he calls the 30-day principle. And so many times when things are slow and we get into a slump, we don't do anything, but we realize what we're doing for the next 30 days. And this is part of the planning. It impacts us down the road. Just like in farming, if I don't plant when it's time to plant, for a wheat farmer, that's usually in the fall. So if you're not planting in the fall, ain't nothing going to happen when spring and summer come and you're looking for a harvest. There just won't be anything there. So I'm pretty excited because you say that farming and selling are two of the oldest professions, and truly they are. And I love how you're bringing both of those together. So you talk about 7 principles. Can you kind of just give us a real quick bird's eye view of what those 7 principles are?
Yeah, so plan, and I think we've talked about planning pretty adequately thus far. The second principle is position, and that's really orienting the team and the plan with your customers and other stakeholders. A good plan poorly positioned will equal a bad year. That's the soundbite for the position chapter. The third principle is prepare, and that is getting your team in order. Getting, for farmers, it's getting the land, getting the equipment ready, making sure all your equipment is up to speed. The fourth is going to be plant. So we go prepare, then plant. And planting is one of those self-known, self-obvious kind of things. If you don't plant, what's the point? The fifth chapter, which I think is probably the most meaty chapter, is tend. T-E-N-D, to take care of, to look after, to work. Just because we plant doesn't mean that we're going to get a harvest if we don't work the fields.
Right.
And the sixth is harvest, and that's why people are going to read the book. They want to harvest. That's why we're in this, is because we've got to put hay in the barn.
Right.
But I think the seventh, maybe the most controversial and probably the easiest to ignore chapter, is restore. At the end of the year, if you don't go back and rotate your crops, put something back in the land, fix your equipment, there's no point in even starting the next year. And we live in a culture where the Gary Vaynerchuks and the grind and the work mentality is celebrated, often I think to a fault.
Yep. Yeah.
And so on the one hand, you've got this culture of do more, be seen, being busy, celebrate your best life on social media. But then the unspoken reality is that we have mental health and addiction and divorces and all these things that really stand in the way of us having lasting success. So I felt like if I don't talk about that, because I've been on the front lines for years and seen a lot of sales professionals, a lot of business owners wreck their career by not restoring their leadership. Yeah. So we spent some time talking about it.
Well, and I think especially right now we're going through and times like where we're at, today come and go, where the economy is freaking out. Everyone's, no clue what's coming. And I think it is really bringing out, I keep saying it brings out the best and worst of people, but it really is it's bringing to the forefront that some of these guys have no methods for dealing with this. I can't tell you the number of people who've reached out to me about stuff. I'm dealing with depression. I'm incredibly anxious. I'm this, they are not taking care of themselves mentally. They're not prepared. They're not taking advantage of the slower period to kind of sit back. They're just sitting there on the couch freaking out. And so you're spot on. It is not addressed enough. And when things aren't, in the slow period, brings it out. And I think really, I don't think we have people with enough equipment mentally to handle that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, here's the thing. I think that when they put all let's face it, because we're not out of this boat, it's not us looking down on the low, we're all in this boat. So I think a couple of things we have to look at is in the area of restore. It's incredibly important that we realize we're just shifting. This is not the end of the world. This is not Corona apocalypse, although there's, lots of that stuff being said online. It's not the end of the world. What this is it's a shift. And this is a great time to work on the restore and also to begin to work into the plan. I mean, those things can be working simultaneously. And that's where community online is going to be so important, because obviously before we talk, the military has instituted what they call the 6-foot rule. So even meeting people in person isn't going to be as effective. And now there are a lot of people who rightfully are concerned about catching the virus and spreading it to family members who could possibly have a fatal result from it. And so the restore is really, it's super critical. And yet it's not like this is such a slow period. This is actually a transition period into the next thing that we can do to serve the people that we're called to serve.
So one of the things that we talked about in the restore chapter is this practice that I have typically done at the end of my selling year, which is usually around the holidays. But I think there's some value now because it is a slow period. And like we say in the book, you have to take the slow periods when they come. You have to know when to identify them and take advantage of them. For many of us at home, we can't get out and sell. We can't get out and grow our business. So what can we do? Well, I say it's time to fire yourself and rehire yourself back in a new way, ready to respond to this crisis. So if you find yourself saying to yourself in your head, I'm trusting that. I need to make progress on. I'd like to get the support of. My intention is to write all that stuff down. And who's the person that needs to step in? Who are the you that you need to be that can answer those tough questions for your team and for your business? And get clear on the leader you need to be in this season and hire that person. Because who you were before this crisis is not going to be the leader that your team needs, that your business needs to survive, and what's going to be this new economy. Because we're learning a lot about what was business as usual. There will not be business as usual. Teams will have mutinies about going back to work. We will recognize that working from home and needing people in the office and having, brick and mortar offices aren't as necessary. So it's going to be a new economy. So who do you need to be as a new leader in this new economy? And I think now's the time to work on it. It's already here.
Good point.
I think that's spot. And I think that's a really, and it gives people something to work on, something to hold on to, right? Which is kind of what I was saying I loved most about the book is it gives people that thing to grab, to hold on to and work on, and really allows them to position themselves, right? And I think that's the big key here is that positioning yourself, right? Setting yourself up. This is not the end of it. The slow period's not the end of it. It's a vital piece to continued growth as a salesperson.
I agree. And before we started recording, Nigel, you mentioned something about the book is meant to be read on an airplane. Now, obviously, that may not be happening right now as much as it used to happen, let's say, a month ago. However, tell us the intent of the book for sales leaders.
Yeah, so the almanac is the farmer's reference. He carries it around in his back pocket. You can find it in his office. And that's what this book is intended to do for sales leaders. It's to help them plan their perfect year and execute against that plan throughout the year. So, it's a book that I think should be on your desk. And the way we've laid out each chapter is there's questions at the end of it. They're very tactical things that you can do. So when you find yourself wrestling with where you are with one of these principles, you just pick it up and it'll give you some things to think about and to consider and hopefully take action on.
So what might one of those questions be? Let's talk about, so we talked about restore. I'm curious about tend, because even though we are in a situation that's novel, we are in a situation that's new, and for a lot of people may be uncertain, there's still the opportunity to tend. And I'm assuming that tending is, I've planted the seed, I've made contact with a potential customer, and now I'm working to build the relationship. I'm working to cultivate that time with them. So what would be a question from the book that somebody could read and would help them tend?
Yeah, that's a great question. So questions that come up are, what are the specific steps that I need to take for each customer to go from unaware of our offering to clear of the problem we solve and happily utilizing the service we provide? Are those steps written down? Can you take every opportunity that's in your current sales funnel and identify which stage each opportunity is currently at and what clear, measurable actions need to be taken by whom, by when, to get the deal done? That is tending. Not everybody does that.
Well, and then, and here we are, we're stuck at home. Many people are. I mean, I'm not. Stephanie's not. I don't know if you are.
My life really hasn't changed. I mean, I work from home. I just keep laughing about it. I'm like, yeah, nothing's changed for me. So,
but this is a perfect time for people to do that. Now, there will be distractions at home. I'm not sure. And there are distractions in farming. There are things that people would rather be doing than going out and doing these steps. How can we help our listeners stay on task with these things while they have these changing times, these slow times, if you will?
Well, I think it's important to remember what you can and what you can't control. Okay, you can control your attitude. You can control the narrative that's in your head. You can control what you consume, whether it be through media or actually ingesting into your body. You can control how you spend your time. Things you can't control is when this virus is going to be over, when you get to go back to work, whether or not a customer wants to buy or not. You can control how many phone calls you're going to make today just to check in on customers, maybe not even ask them, but for business, but just to be human and empathetic. You can control how you plan your follow-up. You can control the technology that you want to use in lieu of getting in front of people. You can control, if you're a business owner, you can control your expenses. You can decide to suspend, to furlough, to reduce expenses. There's so many things that are controllable that we choose to ignore in times like this. And so my soundbite to the leaders that are listening is, you have to think about, what are the results that I need? How far is this going to deviate me from plan? And what specific actions can I take today that'll help me get back on plan?
Sound wisdom. Sound wisdom. I mean, because plans, even though we make the plans, sometimes stuff happens. I mean, who would have known at the beginning of the year that we would suddenly be in the throes of a pandemic? Who would have thought? And so
Dwight Eisenhower said that, when it comes to preparing to go to war, he's always found that the plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And what planning allows you to do is to know where you've deviated off course and how and when to intervene. We all know that you can write a plan down and it's not going to happen, but that's not the point. The point is that planning challenges you to think about contingencies, to think about the what ifs, and think about what adversity you should anticipate along the way.
Wow.
That's a fantastic quote. And I think it is so spot on. I know some salespeople who are like, well, why bother? Why bother? It's all going to change. Salespeople have to be able to, adjust and shift and morph. And I'm like, yeah, but don't throw away the value of having set yourself down to really put something, put a plan together. That's awesome. I'm totally well, I guess I can't really steal the quote from you, but I'm going to use that quote.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess there are many of football coaches. I played football in college and still love the game, that will go into a game scripting the entire first 5, 10, 20 plays, regardless of the outcome. They've already decided, no matter what the defense does, I'm going to run these plays just to see how they respond, how they act, so that I can plan the rest of the game accordingly. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there to just say, I'm going to run it. I don't care what the outcome is, but we're going to learn and we're going to observe and we're going to get instant feedback on how we need to change.
Well, and that's the key right there, is that, okay, I'm going to run my plan, right? I'm going to run this, like whatever my plan was, and get that feedback and evaluate that feedback and use it to then become agile and shift and adjust as needed to win the game. I know people who are like, well, I'm not going to play unless I've got the perfect plan. I'm like, well, you're not going to have the perfect plan. You have to get out there and you have to start doing something, right? So put together the best one you can, watch what happens, learn from it, and adjust your strategy moving forward.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. And, just for our listeners, so that, this is the kind of planning and wisdom that Nigel brings that, that led him to take a company from 94 million to, 350 million before selling off. I mean, we're not just talking about theory here, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about stuff that actually works. And Nigel is a guy, that's why he's been to the Grow Retreat twice. Guess we should talk about a third time, but
well, we've never brought a speaker back a third time. Hold on. We have to think this through, but
yeah, she's got a plan.
I know. I am curious. So with the harvest, right? We've talked about how harvest is what, everyone's interested in harvest, like this is exciting to everybody. What is probably your best top 2 or 3 tips for, because like the first thing you talk about in chapter 6 is your harvest isn't guaranteed, right? Stuff happens. So what are your best couple of tips that you can give people for getting to that harvest and for making sure that harvest is a good harvest?
Yeah. So in farming, there's this thing that we call the harvest moon, and it happens in October. And uh, there's something very different about the moon. The reason why we call it the harvest moon is it's brighter. It's the brightest moon of the year. Why that's important is before farmers had all this technology with these combines with huge lights, it was the only way that you could harvest 24 hours a day. The moon was so bright, you could literally work through the night to get it done. Well, why was that so important? Oh, typically, you can expect rain to spoil a harvest, too little rain to spoil a harvest, a cold front to spoil a harvest. Replace those variables with competitive threat, a rep leaves, yada, 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 a vacation. So I think that the key to understanding how to time a harvest is knowing the points of connection with your customer, the way in which you position your offering to help them make sense. We're looking for that aha moment, and we can't be afraid to do the work and to get in and ask for the business when the customer's ready. And that might be on a Saturday. It could be on a Sunday when they text you and you ignore it. It could be working later at night. Those are the kinds of things that I think is most important, is just having that emotional intelligence to know this is when, and I'm not going to go harvest until it's absolutely time to harvest. They have no more questions. They've made complete, total sense. I'm not convincing them that this is going to work. Mm-hmm. They have figured it out for themselves. And I think the second thing about harvesting is you got to harvest with dignity. Let's not force people. Let's not manipulate. I'm getting tired of all there's a new tactic out every day. There's a new book that will tell you some kind of thing to do. Right. And especially in times of uncertainty, and actually Gartner just put out a research study on this. They interviewed 1,100 B2B buyers. And what they found, we think that motivation to change is important in buying. And while it opens the door, it's less important than making sense of the future, how your offering fits into the future. So we think of customer success, being able to provide references. We think of maybe they're unhappy with the incumbent, or the fact that we might have some type of feature and benefit that's better than what they're already using. 3 times more important than that is your ability to help them make sense of uncertainty, navigate nuances and internal barriers within the organization. And if you can do that, you're more likely to get it done.
Awesome. I know our little timer just went off there, but I think that was actually a great well, I think that was a great moment to end on, though, right? Because that's what people are here for. And I'm curious. So I read this book not as a sales manager, but more as like a sales rep. But it really, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, this really actually applies like as a sales manager, as a sales rep. Like, this book is not exclusive to either or. I think a lot of times books are just for the sales rep, but I'm realizing, oh no, this is a good book for the sales manager to read too.
Well, it was written for the sales manager, first and foremost. And I think that there's probably some applications for the producer, the sales rep, but make no mistake. I mean, this book is written for executive leadership and frontline sales managers, because I think that's an audience. Well, I should say, I know that's an audience that is neglected. And I know because Bain did a study that said of all the functions in a sales organization, the sales managers get the least amount of training and resource dollars of the entire company. And so that's the folks I'm here to serve.
That's awesome.
Well, Nigel, it's, we always enjoy having you join us, and I'll work on the third person thing, the third appearance. I'll see what I can do for you there. But Thank you so much. Now, where can people get a copy? I know if they go to a website,
Yeah,
a
so
little cheaper
you
than
can buy
the.
the book. Yep, you can buy the book, Amazon, iTunes, anywhere you want to buy the book. It's in every format you could want: ebook, audiobook. If you want to listen to a Southern drawl, you can go buy the audiobook and I'll whisper into your ear for 4 hours. Or you can go buy the physical book. I like printed books, so I made a paperback and a hardback. If you go buy it from therevenueharvest.com, I'll save you $10 on what you'll get it at Amazon. I'll give you the ebook. I'll sign it. And we can stay connected. So I think it's always better to go save money, get a physical book, or get it in every format you want. So that's why I did that.
Perfect. Yeah, I love doing the audiobooks. Like I'll get the hard copy, then I'll listen to the audiobook, and then I'm making notes in the hard copy. So I'm a
Yeah.
dual copy person.
Yeah, me too.
I've decided this is my
Too.
thing. So, but this was awesome to have you on, Nigel. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us on Black Belt Selling. You've been, you're one of our most impactful guests. I still have little notes up here from the very first interview you did with us that just really impacted how I looked at sales and leadership. And so thank you for doing what you do and for joining us again.
Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. And I'm super proud of you and really excited about the Grow Retreat.
Thank you. Well, awesome. So for our listeners out there, I get it, man. This is a crazy time. This is a crazy time to be going through. Everyone's saying this is unprecedented. We've never been through anything like this. We've been through stuff like this before. We've gotten through it before. What matters now is come back to your roots. Come back to what is going to get you through. Stay dedicated to growth and to learning and to getting yourself to the other side. You got this. Go out there and make it a great week.
So, hey, Nigel, it's good to see you again. You reached out to us after the first recording and you want to do something special for our listeners. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for letting me offer this to your listeners. So since we last spoke about a week ago, my LinkedIn messages and emails have been overwhelmed with people reaching out, asking to answer a question, or can I pick your brain about this, or can we get coffee? And I wish I could answer them all. So what I've decided to do is, to the extent that I can, try to answer them all. And so the best way that I've found to do this is I want to create small group coaching sessions for your listener group and for my LinkedIn network. And so the way this is going to work is I'm going to limit the group size to 5. But if you go and if you buy the book at therevenueharvest.com, and again, this is not about a book sale,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't buy the book, you won't understand how I think about leading in times of uncertainty. So it's just a baseline for you to understand how I think and to understand where I'm coming from when I try to help you solve your problem. So if you go and do that, we will you'll get an email that'll prompt you to go and select a time. It's an hour, and again, we're going to cap it at 5, so that gives you plenty of time. Not only will you hear from me and get direct guidance and advice on how you should handle a certain opportunity or a certain challenge, you're also going to meet some people that are facing the same thing. So you'll get a chance to build community when in a time when we're all working from home and probably a little bit isolated anyway. So that's the one thing that I wanted to share with your group, is that if you do that, you'll get an hour with me, and anyone that buys the book is automatically going to be put into a drawing to win a 1-day workshop with me.
Nice.
So a couple of things going on. So it's well worth the $20 or so to buy the book. You're going to get an hour of coaching with me that I usually charge hundreds of dollars for, and a chance to win a 1-day workshop with you and your sales team. So I think that's a pretty compelling offer, and I think it's needed in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of new normals and challenges. And I think it's a great time to reach out and try to help as many people as possible.
Absolutely. And with the scenery changing practically daily, sometimes even from morning to evening, this is certainly a very valuable thing for people. So you want to go to revenueharvest.com, buy the book. I got to tell you, it's not, I don't even think it's $20, to be honest.
Well, so yeah, so it's therevenueharvest.com. So if you go to the Revenue Harvest, yeah, make sure you get and I think it'll end up being $20 after you pay shipping and handling and all that
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, so it'll be the best $20 you spent in a long time, I think.
And well, let's see, $20 an hour coaching with you and the possibility of a 1-day workshop. I would say that's well worth $20. Absolutely. And how are you going to, how are you, the listener, going to solve any of your problems except to take advantage of this offer? So I'd really like to encourage you to go to therevenueharvest.com, buy the book, and get one of those slots to work with Nigel. Nigel, thank you for your generous offer. Really appreciate you coming back on and reaching out to us again.
Well, thank you for having me. You guys are the heroes here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So go to therevenueharvest.com, buy the book, and get your slot with Nigel. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.